capable teams who are paying close attention to their numbers. There is a strong pull towards trying to get leads as cheaply as possible so you can get as many as possible so that you'll have many people to go on and actually buy. It sounds very responsible. It sounds efficient. And it sounds like good marketing. We want cheap lead costs. But in practice, chasing cheaper leads often creates problems that don't show up until much later, and you don't realize until it's too late. I want to talk about what those hidden costs are and why cheaper leads aren't always the win that people think that they are. So let's start with why we like this idea so much. Lower costs feel like we're doing it right. It's proof that things are working. It feels like progress you can point to. I got the costs down on the lead by changing the creative or optimizing a certain part of the campaign. And they're easy to explain. They look good. When we say we've got low leads, people cheer because that's what they've learned to expect. And to be clear, there are times when getting our lead costs down matters, for sure. If we know we're bringing in quality leads, we want to bring those leads in for as low a cost as possible. But the issue isn't having that as a goal. The issue is what happens when that goal of low lead costs starts driving every decision. That's where we can run into trouble. When the main objective becomes getting leads at the lowest possible cost, these are the things that tend to shift. One, to reach out to more people and get more leads, which means cheaper leads, sometimes the message has to get diluted and it then stops appealing as much to our ideal customer. And that's what's working right now, is messaging that speaks to your ideal customer. And when we broaden it like that and avoid the friction, it makes people sign up more quickly, which is great, but it also makes it harder to get your totally aligned, perfect client or customer into your orbit because you get everybody instead of the key people. The costs are cheaper, but you've got everybody listening to your message instead of the ones that really matter. So here's the way it works. Cheaper leads usually come from making it easier to say yes. And there's some things that we can do to get cheaper leads that won't dilute the quality of those leads, but there's other things that will dilute the quality. Here's why we get cheaper leads. Because it's a lower commitment, because it's less specific, and because you don't need as much intention to take action, which is great. But if that is delivering the wrong people, it's not the right thing. So we want the volume to go up with our leads, but when that volume goes up, we want it to go up with the right people by attracting more of the right ones, which maybe isn't always a matter of volume. Because oftentimes volume does not fix a misaligned message, it just creates it at scale, which is an even bigger problem if you're getting more leads in that aren't aligned because the message is broad enough to get more people in. And this is what we've noticed in launches where we get hyper-focused on lead cost. We got to get the lowest possible lead. When that happens, a lot of times then the conversions on the other end get harder because we've worked so hard at getting leads in cheap that we've gotten the wrong people in, which makes it harder to then turn around and get those people to buy. And that's why sometimes it can be more important to not try to get the costs down, but try to get the right people in the door. And the tricky part is that when you're working in a launch environment, you won't be able to tell if you have the right people until you get to the end. So there are three things that are happening when we're bringing in the wrong leads. One, sales conversions are harder. They take more effort. You have to show up online more. When your leads aren't as qualified, when you have more of them, chances are this could be coming into play. Also, in general, your business gets noisier. You may attract more people who do buy, but because there are more edge cases or more exceptions or people who aren't quite the right fit but close enough, that can make your product experience a little noisier for your ideal clients, and it can make the actual experience less ideal. So you have to keep that in mind. And I see this happening to beginner teams, yes, but more often experienced teams. Beginner teams are just excited to have leads that end up buying. This more often shows up with people who've been launching for a while because they've seen the more leads they get in, the more purchases they can get, which is a true mathematical equation. And so they go after more leads, which means trying to get cheaper leads. But when you broaden it, you start to get more of the wrong leads, which then means you get buyers who either aren't ideal and don't feel aligned in your courses, or who don't buy ever. There's one idea to keep in mind when you're trying to bring new leads into your business. It's this: the cheapest lead is rarely the most efficient one, meaning the cheapest lead often ends up costing your business more than a more expensive lead because of the friction that cheap lead creates. They're harder to convert, and if you are able to convert them, they aren't necessarily as aligned with your offer as your ideal lead. So when you are considering who you want to get into your programs, you have to think about the total effort to take that person from random person on Facebook or Instagram to buyer. And the effort involved with a cheap lead may be greater than a more expensive lead because they might be more aligned. And in the end, you might save yourself money by going after the more expensive leads. Now, we're not always going to get excited about high lead costs, especially when we have a history and we know what we can get, and we know that the lead costs we got before worked in converting the volume we want at this time. Sometimes it's fine, but sometimes higher lead costs are a sign that your messaging is clearer, your audience is more specific and aligned with your offer. You better set the expectations about what your product is, and it results in a smoother, less expensive process in the long run. Those leads may come in at a higher cost, but they often come in steadier with few surprises. So it can be worth paying a little extra. And the main thing I want you to take away from this is that chasing the cheaper leads isn't wrong. It's something that we do want. We want to lower costs, but when you only look at the cost of the lead, it's incomplete. It's just one part of what makes someone a good buyer. Cost is one part. Alignment with your product is another. Clarity about what you offer is another. If your marketing is bringing in people who feel easier to talk to, easier to serve, more prepared, that is what worth paying attention to, even if the costs look higher on paper. Sometimes the most strategic move is choosing the path that makes the business simpler and easier, not just less expensive. It's like when you buy cheap pans and you're a chef. When you buy cheap pans, your food doesn't turn out good. The pans are hard to clean. They don't look pretty in your kitchen. When you buy expensive pans, yeah, they cost a lot up front, but you don't waste as much food because you're not burning things. They last longer because they are better pans and the metal is stronger, and they cook more evenly, again, because they're higher quality. Sometimes you get what you pay for, and that is absolutely true with leads too.